Okay, thanks Malcolm. So what we have here in this first board is our belief as geneticists as to what is the cow of the future, right? And the first error I've noticed inside it is that it says cow, and it really should be the calf and the cow. We might come back to that one later, or you might even challenge us on that component. There are also different color coded, so the blue are the ones that we think we've got a really good handle on, and we've got really good data, and we're going in the right direction. The green ones are the ones that we think we've got a good handle on, but now in hindsight, if you really scrutinize yourself, you're saying, well, I think there's a lot more we could actually do in this. And then the red ones are the traits that really we haven't put much emphasis on. But we believe that by 2030, there's going to be a serious questions being asked about these individual components of our cows. So what do we need to do today to ensure that we have a sustainable breeding program for the future for these individual cows? Right? And again, once we're finished going through it, we're going to throw it open to you guys, and I'm sure you're going to come up with some of the traits that are missing. So for example, in Hamilton, we heard about bloat, we heard about milk fever. These are all, yes, there's some management associated with it, but they're also under genetic control. So if you want to breed for something, there's three important things that need to be fulfilled. Firstly, it needs to be important. And up until now, we've been talking about economic importance. What's the dollar value of an extra kilogram of fat? What's the dollar value of a reduction in fertility? But going into the future, we're going to have to be talking more about the societal cost of a lot of these traits. So environment, everybody's talking about environment, everybody's talking about methane. But currently we're not being penalised for methane. Will we in the future? Yes or no? Irrespectively, there's going to be, society is going to expect us to have cognizance of methane emissions or carbon emissions in our animals. The second component to include one of these traits in your breeding objective is that there must be genetic variability. But just take it from me that every single trait, humans, gorillas, cows, sheep, deer, doesn't make a difference, is under genetic control. Right? And the third one is data. And we'll dig into the whole data component in a little bit, but we need to have data. Jeremy and me, we live in an office. We were going to tell you here are the good bulls and here are the bad bulls. We can't just magic up those figures, even though in Ireland at least some of the guys think that I do, but that has to be underpinned by high quality data on sufficient animals with good parentage that enables us to say that this is a good bull, that daughters are less susceptible to mastitis or lameness or tuberculosis, and this is a bad bull. Right? And then we put them into our overall index and we can say, okay, this bull, his daughters are more susceptible to mastitis, but he's really good on solids and he's really good on fertility. And that's where you need to put the different emphasis. Does that bull come up to the top, or does that bull go down to the bottom? Okay? So I want to just continue on to what Malcolm said. And really, I presented, we have these events every now and again, and one of my last ones I actually called it achieving 5.5 lactations per cow. Right? And it was a statistic that we'd never used in Ireland. It actually caused a lot of aggro within Moorepark, because people were really talking about the average lactation number for your herd, which does not equate to the average number of lactations achieved per cow. So how many of you know what your average lactation number per cow achieved is? Right? It's a very easy statistic to calculate. You just look at the cows that you've culled over the last 1 or 2 years and calculate their average lactation number. So some of them will be 10 lactations, and you're going to have either they died on the farm or else you moved them off your farm, they're going to be 1 lactation. On average, it should be 5.5. The bad news is, on average for Kiwis, it's 4.5, and for the Irish farmers, it's 4.2. So we're 1 to 1.5 lactations short of where we need to be. So where do we come up with that 5.5? Well, I think everybody accepts that an 18% replacement rate is the optimum. 9% from voluntary and 9% from involuntary. So you divide 1 by 0.18, you get around 5.5. Right? That's where the 5.5 comes from. Why are we looking for 5.5? Well, we know that a mature animal yields 22% more than a first lactation animal. So if you can have more mature animals, they're yielding proportionally more than a first lactation animal. Right? So there's a huge revenue benefit. Right? If we can actually increase the number of lactations in Ireland from 4.2 up to 5, we can increase milk production. And I know we don't always want to talk about milk production, but we can increase milk production per cow by 40%. Right? For nothing. So you have this animal. She's born, she's a heifer. She's 2 years of age. She's doing absolutely nothing for you. She's eating all your grass, and she's burping and farting into the environment. Right? And then you spend around 4 years actually literally milking the stuff out of her. When in fact you should be spending 5.5. If you can do 5.5 lactations, you're diluting that economic cost, right? So it takes in Ireland 1.63 lactations to pay back the cost of a heifer. So in other words, if you cull a cow Before she reached the second half of her second lactation, you lost money on that cow. She did not repay herself. So you can only start the clock from the second half of the second lactation in regards to money generation, right? The problem with selecting for older cows is just like us. As we get older, health is going to become more and more important, but also our conformation is going to become more important. You can see that you see a young person like yourself just sprinting across, and you see an old guy just hobbling away like this. The hips are giving in, the bones are giving in, right? Conformation hasn't really been an issue up until now because we've been culling our cows early. But as our cows get older, animal conformation, I believe, is going to become more and more important. Not the breed society type conformation, the big angular cows with lovely legs this way and that way. It's the functionality, it's the udder support, right? Ensuring that the bags don't burst, because that is a greater, as animals get older, obviously the muscles weakens, there's going to be a greater predisposition to that. But also good functionality of legs. Cows are going to have to walk longer. As you get older, it's not going to be so much easier, right?
Donagh, I guess you talked about the lactating cows, but there's an aspect I think we often overlook, is those animals actually have to first reach 2 years of age. And currently we're not really doing anything there. Basically we start our evaluation once they hit 2 years of age. No, Ireland you had was something like 25% or so?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest deficiencies I see in genetic evaluations or breeding programs across the entire world in cattle. Dairy, beef, doesn't make a difference, like work across all of them, is we start everything once the animal calved. But what about the animals that never calved? So again, a challenge to yourselves is go home, look at it over the past few years, what percentage of the heifers, eligible heifers that were born on your farm never calved down on any farm? Right, and what is that statistic? And I'd say you'll be a bit astounded at what that statistic is. In Ireland, it's 24%. Only 76% of our heifers that are eligible heifers that are born calve anywhere in the country, because we know all the animals that move. So it's not the case of the farmers, they move off their surplus. Anywhere in the country, only 76% of them calve. That's a massive wastage in the system. So like the reasons are obviously mortality, just not hitting target weights, respiratory disease, just poor performance, and infertility. Right? So to me, if we look at this again, and again come back and challenge us on some of these aspects, is I think we talk about health and we start talking about older cows, etc., but what we're really missing is the younger animals as well. And being able to capture that data, look at the target weight, see are they achieving it, and therefore what is their subsequent performance.
Donagh, what we find in New Zealand, it's a question I often ask of farmers, is do you calculate your replacement rate when you order the tags, or when you tag the heifers? And so often we are tagging a certain number of calves, thinking that that's what's required for the ongoing continuity of the herd development and so on, only to find that there is an unrecognisable attrition. And I think that number that you've been banding around this week of 24% being the number in Ireland is really significant.
Yeah. Well, and again, one of the aspects I'm going to put it to Jeremy now is the whole ability to reach puberty early, right? But there's a little bit of evidence, and Jeremy, you can touch on it now, about even though we're not directly considering reaching puberty or calf traits, your fertility is doing something about it. Your current fertility evaluation is doing something?
Yeah.